Better Call Saul is my favorite show of all time. It's earned that title for a number of reasons. I was a big fan of its predecessor, Breaking Bad, to the point that I used a clip from season 3 to teach my 8th grade students about their Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful search and seizure, and I just finished that show when Better Call Saul started airing. Better Call Saul is actually the first show where I watched every single episode live while it was airing. I tend to get into shows late, as evidenced by starting Game of Thrones during mid season 6. I've also always enjoyed shows about lawyers. Both of my parents are attorneys, and I'm training to be one myself. Needless to say, all of these reasons played a part in my love for the show. But even without all of that, I think it's pretty near a perfect text. Today, I wanted to discuss one specific section of that televisual text, my favorite episode. I've never seen anyone else discuss this as their favorite episode of Better Call Saul before, and today I thought I'd discuss its merits and what it means to me. Frankly, if not for the thumbnail of this video, I really doubt anyone could guess that this episode was worthy of being my or anyone else's favorite. I hope you enjoy my analysis of Better Call Saul, Season 1, Episode 8, RICO. This episode begins with what I think is the most consequential flashback in the entire series. Essentially a short 6-minute story in 3 acts. The first of these mini-acts sees Jimmy's going from the mailroom throughout HHM, chatting with people and generally showing off his social gifts as he has little interaction with a number of individuals throughout the office. He then arrives at Kim's office and asks her to read a letter for him as he's too nervous to read it himself. She reads it, they kiss, everyone cheers. This is the first direct indication towards a romantic connection that will later become the core relationship for the show, and this scene really has a special place in my heart for that. It's pretty sweet, and it's nice to see things actually concretely start to get going to some degree, at least in the past. This small scene begins a theme for the episode, which is the main through line that I absolutely love here. That this is a positive, happy episode. In fact, a case can be made that it's the most optimistic episode in all of Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. We see several characters acting as the best versions of themselves before they begin to deteriorate throughout the rest of the series. I'll explain a bit more as we progress through the episode, but I think RICO establishes this theme quite early on, and I wanted to touch on it as a bit of a framing device from the jump. I also just want to say, before we return to the flashback, I'd really appreciate any support on this video. It's my first that isn't about Game of Thrones in over 2 years, so I'm quite worried about the algorithm murdering it for not being about that. Subscribing and liking the video are free, and I'd love to hear your opinion on this episode or your favorite episode in the comments below. The flashback continues with Jimmy bringing the good news to his kind and supportive big bro Chuck. I love McKean's acting in this scene. It's such a wonderful blend of utter surprise with underlying hints of Chuck still being a complete and total prick. This scene and its immediate successor change a lot once the viewer has the context provided in the next episode. I've always enjoyed them as sort of a Rorschach test as to the current state of the show in the viewer's mind. A new fan can watch it and hate Howard but love Chuck, while a rewatch creates an environment while the viewer loathes Chuck but pities Howard. I do think this scene does a great job of showing that, at least at this point, there is still a core of love between the brothers McGill. Jimmy loves his brother and actively seeks his approval, and seems to begrudgingly get it in this scene. It's a really rare instance of Chuck seeming genuinely happy for his brother, though it does fade as Jimmy asks for a job. Go land crabs. Man, this initial section from the past is dense. The final interlude takes place in the mailroom, Jimmy's current place of work. Kim is there, as is Ernie, who is a great character who we see later on in the show as well. And there's an incredibly subtle joke here that I love and I've never seen anyone else mention. Jimmy calls the other mailroom employee, who we never see again and only interact with in this scene, Bert. The mailroom workers at HHM are Bert and Ernie, which is great. Bert and Ernie aside, I think this scene is my favorite directorial choice of the episode. I'd like to applaud whoever decided to shoot this one as they did. Howard arrives to talk with Jimmy, and as his friends close the door behind him, the sound cuts away. We see the conversation through the glass, and we already know the outcome based on the previous 7 episodes. The show gives us room to fill in what's happening and what's being said ourselves, telling a story with only the character's body language. It's almost like a horror movie when you can't see the monster, and that's even scarier than when you can see it. It's up to your imagination to fill in exactly what this horrifying monster Howard Hamlin is saying. It serves as a bit of a dour end to the flashback and sets the tone for where Jimmy is at the start of the story quite well. It does a great job of contextualizing why Jimmy hates that trash can just so much. This is a tiny thing, but I think the intro shot that they use in the opening credits is my favorite that they use throughout the entire series. I love how vibrant the tie is, and the tarantula evokes one of my favorite episodes of Breaking Bad, Dead Freight. Back in the present, we get the epic conclusion to the Kettleman saga in Season 1, which I tragically cannot discuss in this episode, as Howard has a press conference about the settlement. He peer pressures Kim into going, and I really like that there's a little bit of continuity here, with Kim saying, "Oh, I don't really have time, I'll have to work through lunch anyway," and then Howard forces her to go, and we see her working quite late at night later on in the episode. Jimmy looks on from a TV at Sandpiper Crossing, a retirement community in which a number of his clients reside. He clearly has a chip on his shoulder regarding the settlement, the Kettlemans, and Howard, but as he moves throughout the nursing home, his passion for his senior clients really shines through, and it's really great to see. I think that this initial scene very much sets up the status quo, especially at HHM, quite well for the rest of this season. I also just want to applaud whoever designed the set for Mrs. Landry's apartment. It looks exactly like my grandma's did. Jimmy finishes her will, and Mrs. Landry doesn't have the money to pay. Sandpiper only gives her an allowance of $500 a month. Jimmy leaves, but comes back on an instinctual hunch that something is up, leading to his checking several clients' receipts. It turns out that Sandpiper Crossing is systematically overbilling their clients for routine care and items, defrauding a massive number of senior citizens. This is what I mean when I say that characters are being their best selves in this episode. Jimmy's generally pretty unorthodox, but he's incredibly gifted in certain areas. He's great at quickly assessing situations. Here, he realizes that seniors are being scammed, even when his incredibly intelligent brother completely misses it. Though in this case, an argument could be made that Jimmy actually knows this via his own experience in scamming people. Jimmy's other two primary gifts are also on full display this episode. The first of these, his social genius, is seen in his interactions with numerous seniors. They all love him, and that's not just because he's dressed like Matlock. He's actively advocating for them, and while they definitely be a payday in it for him, at this point in his life, Jimmy seems to actively care for these senior citizens. He genuinely seems to want to protect them from Sandpiper's theft, at least at this stage in the show. We know that changes later. Jimmy McGill's other gift is his penchant for creative solutions. Essential for any con man, these abilities are used for good in RICO. When he returns to the nursing home, he's barred from entry under a new no solicitation, quote unquote, policy. He can clearly tell that they're shredding documents, so he quickly draws up a demand letter in a bathroom using a piece of cardboard and a roll of toilet paper. Later on, he retrieves these shredded documents from a garbage can, being willing to get his hands dirty to help his clients. I also love that how accurate this show is to the actual law. Jimmy assures Chuck that his dumpster diving is legal, which is exactly correct based on the precedent of California v. Greenwood. Also, fun fact, the focus on the titular RICO statutes in this episode actually helped me answer a cold call during civil procedure in my first semester of law school. Now that I've brought him up, let's talk a bit about Chuck. A big part of why I labeled this the most positive episode in the Breaking Bad universe, or does Slipping Jimmy make it a multiverse? Is the relationship between Jimmy and Chuck. This is the best episode in the series for the Brothers McGill. They're working together, and man, do they work well. Jimmy catches on to this issue as a whole, and he goes through the trouble of getting information on the ground and assessing the best way forward. I still believe that one of the most impressive feats in either series, Chuck reassembles the relevant documents from the shredded remains. He's also the one to actually see the full vision of this case. It's Chuck that identifies the massive potential for a class action here, and he knows not to settle for Schweikert and Coakley, even when they want to hear the brothers' counteroffer. With that said, both brothers still feel true to themselves and their characters in this episode. As mentioned earlier, Chuck is still a dick to Jimmy when the younger McGill gets barred. Likewise, Jimmy's definitely a little underhanded with his brother, as Chuck details one of my favorite metaphors in the series. By leaving wills at Chuck's house, Jimmy is effectively Tom Sawyer, getting Chuck to paint a fence for him. Rico also gets credit in my book for introducing a pretty fun side character who appears a fair bit throughout the rest of the show, Rich Schweikert. He's generally a good dude, and he's introduced here in a similar manner to Howard, which I think is pretty telling about the show's perspective and, through it, Jimmy's perspective. These talented and privileged lawyers are viewed as being jerks on first impression, but the more we see of them outside of Jimmy's initial view, the more we learn that they're genuinely good people. Jimmy has a chip on his shoulder, and it's another example of that chip influencing how he views people and consequently how we, the audience, view people. I really enjoy Jimmy and Rich's initial phone conversation while Jimmy's in the dumpster, primarily the focus on the quote-unquote magic flute, which is fun. One of the best scenes in this episode is the meeting between Jimmy and Chuck and Schweikert and Coakley. The brothers are very much painted as a little guy, the David in this David and Goliath situation, going up against these massive corporate lawyers. And they win. As corporate lawyers are wont to do, Schweiker opts to settle out of court for some far less than the class deserves, while admitting no wrongdoing whatsoever. Jimmy correctly points out that because Sandpiper conducts business in support of fraud across state lines, the RICO provisions would be applicable. It's clear that Rich then reconsiders and asks for a counteroffer, which Chuck provides, a modest $20 million. They promptly leave, and the brothers begin excitedly preparing to further their case. While this is obviously a massive moment for Jimmy in originating such a big case, it's also a watershed moment for Chuck. This is our first time seeing him slip back into a professional role as a lawyer after being afflicted by electromagnetic hypersensitivity. It's this that starts the ball rolling towards him returning to work, albeit in a limited capacity. This episode sets that ball rolling for a number of elements in the series, including the deaths of several important characters that I won't spoil outright in case you're somehow at this point only just watching Season 1, Episode 8. It's time for a brief Mike interlude. I really prefer Jimmy's side of the show, but I think that Mike's stuff here is still pretty strong. It's one of the smallest roles he has in this first season, being comparable to Jimmy's role in the Mike-centric 5-0. He gets to watch his granddaughter again, and this signals that the rift with his daughter-in-law has finally been healed. However, Stacy is still having money troubles after the death of her husband. It's this need for funds that drives Mike to seek out the vet, who's one of my favorite side characters in Better Call Saul. This motivation, providing for one's family, is the core of how Mike justifies his actions to himself throughout this series and even in Breaking Bad, and has its foundations in this very episode. I also think it's fascinating how this motivation is framed differently to Walter having the exact same motivation in Breaking Bad. Walt's is very much framed in toxic masculinity, needing to be the one to be the breadwinner for his family, whereas Mike seems to have a genuine sense of duty and honor in wanting to be a caretaker for those around him. Moving from Mike to another one of my favorite characters in the show, though admittedly most of the characters in the show are my favorites, Kim's role in this episode is pretty subtle, but still great. This is the first episode where I could really start to see that Jimmy and Kim could be a great romantic pairing, and it's not just because of the kiss at the start of the episode. Her staying late to print 500 pages worth of case law for Jimmy should be an immediate signpost that she is down bad for him. And honestly, who wouldn't be? He's Kevin Costner. Their relationship is obviously amazing when it takes shape in Season 2, but I don't know, there's something still super sweet about seeing it in this phase in Season 1, where they both clearly have crushes on each other and haven't acted on anything yet, save for that celebratory kiss earlier. The final scene I'd like to analyze is, fittingly, the final scene. It's my favorite ending in the first 2 seasons by a mile, and it's probably my top 5 for the entire series as a whole. It's such a simple scene, but it's incredibly effective. Jimmy returns home after an apparently eventful mall walk and has a bit of a nap. Chuck, consumed by reading statutes, absentmindedly walks out of the house, grabs Jimmy's keys, pops the trunk, and retrieves some relevant documents. All while Jimmy and the viewer, both amazed, look on. Chuck hasn't been able to go outside for the entirety of the series unaided by a space blanket. And so far, the fact that he's able to grab the electronic car keys without so much as flinching is quite telling. We'd seen a doctor turn on an electric hospital bed under him before, so we, the viewers, know that this condition is all in his head, but this is the first moment that Chuck himself is briefly led into that truth as well. It's also shot beautifully, as is the entire episode, oh my god, with the final wide shot of the two brothers. The documents slip from Chuck's grasp as he realizes what he's done, and now what he's capable of doing. I don't watch Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones with the intent or expectation of being uplifted. I love watching these shows for the complex journeys that these deep characters undergo, as each challenge tests an element of their personality or one of their skills. These characters grow and change and are pushed to the limit, but the core elements remain the same. This episode is that core to me. This episode is the baseline of Better Call Saul to me. The first episode isn't the status quo. This is. Jimmy now actively works in elder law, using his skills honed as a con man to shield senior citizens from predatory corporations. This is the height from which Jimmy McGill falls. Chuck is beginning to emerge from his shell, actually using his passion from the law to help his brother for the only time in the series. Mike's sense of duty to provide for his granddaughter pushes him to take some as of yet unknown action, probably involving baseball cards. But it's all for her. Kim and Howard aren't quite fully formed yet, but it still serves as an effective origin point for both individuals. Every character is at their best in the series. It's all downhill from here, which makes me sad, but it's such compelling drama that it makes this episode just fun to revisit as a baseline. It's a rare, bright spot in a universe typically consumed by gloom. While the events herein set a number of characters down a dark path, for this one episode, it's truly all good man. Bravo, Vince. Further and more direct bravo to Colin Buxey, who directed this episode, and Gordon Smith, who wrote it. Okay, thank you so much for watching. This was a big change of pace for me. I've not talked about anything that isn't a Song of Ice and Fire in a very long time, so I really appreciate any support on this video. Feel free to like it, subscribe to the channel, and comment what you thought of this video, or this episode, or this series as a whole. I'd love to hear your opinions. I would love to branch into other things as well. If you want to hear more about Better Call Saul, let me know. If you want to hear more about other series, let me know what series you want to hear me talk about. That said, there is still a lot of Song of Ice and Fire content on the way. Actually, yesterday, as I'm recording this, I finished recording my longest video ever. It's currently just under an hour and a half long, so I hope you will look forward to that in the very near future. Maybe not very near. I still need to edit it, and it's very much scaring me. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye, everyone.